So James, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
I am looking forward to having a good chat about your experience. I'm always intrigued, like I said off camera, to how people's kind of moving journey has gone.
Sure.
Sounds like yours is quite interesting, actually, with a few outside of the norm circumstances.
It certainly was a little different.
I think you can say that.
I guess the first question is, what was the reason, what was the goal? Why did you make that decision to kind of go through the stress of moving home?
Sure. So I guess we looked at a number of properties over the last 5 years, never really found one that was the one. This one came up and it was let's go for it. It ticks all the boxes, needs some work, but it's definitely worth investing the stress, the money, the time to get the ideal house, I suppose. So this was the moment to go for it.
So it's actually a property that you saw that flagged and you went, right, that's the one, let's go for that, rather than the idea of a relocation or an upsize or a downsize. It was more, this is the one that we want, and
correct,
all in on that, basically.
Yeah, it flagged up on Rightmove. We looked at it. Matt was actually the agent at the time, and I had a few viewings with Matt. He was good enough to get us in at the earliest possible opportunity, and the location's great, features are great, had everything we wanted. So we went for it.
Perfect. And was there any concerns or fears about entering the market, talking to mortgage advisors, solicitors, estate agents, that everything that's gone on? Was there any sort of worries that you had prior to pulling the trigger?
I think you always hear horror stories about gazumping, gazundering, things falling through, surveys coming back and mortgages not being granted on the basis. So that was the kind of the fears in the background. I think knowing Matt and his expertise, that kind of made life that bit easier. Had a decent mortgage advisor, so that took care of that. It was just the unknowns in the background of what might happen.
Makes sense. And from your point of view, Matt, having that team process, mortgage advisor, everything laid out, obviously a relationship prior as well, was there anything that you thought was outside of the norm with this move, or was it should it have been a straightforward one?
No, I mean, on paper it was reasonably straightforward. You were going from a very natural upsize, very natural part of the village, and staying within the village. On paper, it could have been very, very straightforward.
And how did you find things as you kind of made the offer and obviously put your property on the market? How did you find things overall?
So it was all going very swimmingly with a previous arrangement. Our buyer decided at the 11th hour to pull out. So that had its whole heap of complications. The vendor then decided to put the house we wanted up for rent rather than waiting for us to get another buyer. So we plunged into renting the house that we wanted to buy alongside owning our current house. So we had the stress of 2 lots of bills, which was rather hectic. We engaged with Matt, knowing him from previous, to help us to sell our property to enable us to then purchase the ongoing new house. So Matt was great in that regard. He responded extremely quickly to every sort of request, took the emotion out of how we were feeling, and I think tempered it with the buyer to make it more palatable. Obviously the 2 cost thing was quite stressful, a few sleepless nights, but I think Matt kind of eased us through the process, kept us level, took the phone calls when we were agitated, so really helped us through 3 months, nearly 4 months of a tricky situation. So I think the instant contactability I found immensely great. If I need to contact me in the evening or the Sunday, in fact he sold the house on the Sunday, so the flexibility working with a client who had, let's call it, time pressures and windows when I could actually contact people was invaluable. So
yeah, helpful. Where was the decision, or who made the decision? Where was the idea of actually going, let's rent it? Was that something, as soon as it went up for rent, you thought about? Was that a conversation you guys had as agent to seller? Or?
So when it was stalling, I had it in my head, how can we keep this deal together? And it naturally occurred that the vendor wanted to then rent it out to have some income, which I sort of understood, frustrated at the same time. They didn't want to wait for us, and me and my wife said, let's rent it. We get the house that we want on a temporary basis, gives us some time to sell our house, and the vendors were willing to entertain that. So happy ending.
Yeah, just about, yeah. Although some extra costs at the same time.
Certainly was, yeah.
And for you, Matt, as the agent, I guess, the pressure of caring and knowing there was 2 bills effectively coming out at that point, that probably had a bit of, from your point of view, practicality, how you were talking to the buyer, I would have thought as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, but the buyer was always on the same page. They always knew what we were looking to do. From the first minute I showed them round, it was, look, this isn't standard. This needs to go through as quickly as possible. You're in a chain-free position. This house is not chain-free, but empty, and the purchase was at the point of exchange anyway. So we sort of pre-agreed it from the outset of what it needed to be. And they were always on board, for the most part. There was a few conversations that were had, but that part was agreed right from the outset. This is what you're entering. So if you want this to be a 4 or 5 month thing, this isn't going to be right for you.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view, Matt was great at unlocking the situations where things were going to grind to a halt. There was a situation on a survey, there's a situation about have they signed this and that, and the first-time buyer aspect, Matt was great at kind of giving them the knowledge and the expertise and the next steps to be able to hit these milestones and keep it moving, keep the communication channels open. So that was great.
It's a big part of it, especially with first-time buyers, is trying to give them the confidence through knowledge that they know what they need to do next. Because a lot of the time I find, especially first-time buyers, they kind of sit on their hands through no fault of their own. They just don't know what they're meant to do next. So that makes a big difference. Is there anything in hindsight that you would have done different, or conversations you would have had different going back?
I would say checking out the solicitor for the buyers. They were, in my mind, horrendous. Matt will probably say, well, they're probably average. But they were non-communicative, if that's the right way of putting it, and not obstructive, but not very proactive.
Is this the initial buyer or
the eventual buyer?
Okay.
Whereas we had a fantastic solicitor who Matt recommended, and he was on it all the time. So you have 2 polar opposites, and trying to kind of get in your head what's the norm was the challenge, I think.
Was that a panel solicitor by any chance, or?
Yeah, it was that sort of type of solicitor that I don't know exactly where they got them from, and I think, if you were asking me that question, what would I have done differently? I would have probably gone another conversation about the solicitors, but I'd never heard of them before, so I didn't know that's what they were going to be like. But we got through. Okay. We got through. We got moved.
And in terms of estate agency, for us, for kind of feedback for the industry in general, you've dealt with different types of agents in this, which is great. So what's your kind of overall take on the industry now that you've done a sale and a purchase? Is there anything sort of feedback-wise for agents that may be watching this, first and foremost, that you would sort of give them listening or watching the show?
I think you guys have the cutting edge in terms of marketing. So the drone footage, the kind of in-depth, what do we value in the property? That was new to me. Usually it's just, here's a description. Is that good or not? The personal contacts of the WhatsApp, that's great. Just ping Matt a message and he's straight on it. Yeah, I'm on their case. The flexibility for out of hours / weekends on a Sunday, no other agent does that I know of, and that was the thing that sold the house to this particular buyer. So those things are pretty key, and I guess picking up the phone and having that frank conversation when you need to about this and that. Some agents will just either not respond to you or email you, or so that client-facing personal contact is refreshing. Yeah,
no, that's great feedback actually, because I think sometimes those little extra bits. Doing the seller's comment, I guess, did you write your seller's comment as well?
We did, yeah.
I think that in the industry, just little subtleties like that, people really appreciate it. We often turn up at a viewing and the buyer goes, I really like the seller's comment. They like that, don't they, I think?
Yeah, you're quite often they'll go, the seller said how much they love this park, or something along those lines, which actually was the case with your home, with how close it was to Wickes Green play area, but none of the other listings had anything about it.
Yeah.
So it always gets brought up.
And from a trust point of view, I guess one of the industry stats that always blows my mind is that 8 out of 10 people that bought a property when they go to sell it, they won't use the same agent they bought it from to sell it. So that's 80% of people effectively don't go back to the agent which is either because they weren't familiar to them at that point, they just sort of didn't remember, or it wasn't phased, or they actively choose to go against that agent. So it's an industry which we want to improve, we want to make better. Is there anything generally from, not necessarily Avocado or anything in particular, but is there anything that you think should be done differently or changed in the industry from your experience?
I mean, apart from improving on the sort of the baseline that you get with any agent about all the value adds that Avocado and Matt have brought, I think just being totally honest and upfront with everything, even if it's bad news, just deliver the bad news and work through it rather than sugarcoating anything that may arise. And being prepared to have those tough conversations. I think those are the two things that I would say.
Yeah, I think shying away from a difficult conversation is probably experience for most agents. It's quite an inexperienced industry, but I think the more experienced people like yourself are going to just sort of rip the plaster off and just handle it. But not everyone is that way, probably.
No, you see, you do hear a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm putting off having that call because it's the call they don't want to make." Where you just got to call and deal with it. Ultimately, rip the plaster off, as you've said, and ultimately it gets dealt with. And there's always a solution. There's always a solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the other value add is Matt was prepared to poke and prod either the buyer solicitor, my solicitor, just to unlock these doors. And without those, you could easily veer off, lose a day, and to us, that's significant money, days, a week, a month. Yeah, it's just so in our situation, that was invaluable to have these pokes and prods to keep the wheels moving.
Do you think that was because Matt dealt with things from start to finish, so he sort of understood the goal, and he's dealing with you, and he's dealing with the buyer, he's doing the viewing, I
think that is a very good point, Ian. The one-stop shop. He is the customer care manager / salesman / the go-to, even though Irvy's there in the background assisting, and that one point of contact I think makes a massive difference. Yeah,
we felt that because the communication is and has been the number one complaint in our industry through the Ombudsman for over 30 years now, and effectively we are doing a service of communicating. So the fact that that's the number one complaint is probably why the industry reputation sometimes isn't the greatest, but that's definitely something that we, with our blueprint at Avocado, have really tried to work on to ensure that stays that way. And normally people feel that one point of contact does make a huge difference. Is there any advice that you would give to people that are looking to move, be it the village or anywhere? Is there any advice that you would give to other people about to make that jump, specifically selling and buying at the same time?
I would say get your house in order, literally.
Yep.
Get it presented right, because that definitely sells it, even if you have to add some additional touches, plants and stuff, which we did, just to give it the wow factor. Use Avocado, Matt particularly.
Nice plug, appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
That's all we need, just that's it.
Be very careful which solicitor you use, take your recommendations. We didn't go for the cheapest, but I think we went for the best that was available in the right region and had the right contacts. And prod, poke and push as hard as you can with your buyers or your sellers to make sure they know what they're supposed to be doing, because otherwise it will just take forever. It does take forever, but take even longer. So not being shy and holding back to move things along.
Yeah, no, great tip. So number one, get the house in order, get it looking as good as it possibly can to go to market, so you can maximise the price, and if someone's interested, they see it in its best light. Great advice. Choose a good estate agent that wears pink. With a pink brand always helps. And then also get your team right, get your power team right, because it's a team game moving house. Certainly. You can't do it on your own, so the right expertise, it makes our life easier as well.
100%. I mean, imagine if you were both using solicitors that weren't as on the ball as the one you did use, you wouldn't have moved yet. Right?
No,
it's probably so the power team of everyone being on the same page is massive.
Well, congratulations on getting the move done with the obstacles you had to go through as well, because I think a lot of people would have lost the dream property if they were in your situation, but you managed to look at angles to make it work. So, well done on that, and well done for getting the property, and I hope you're super happy there. And thank you for us, at Avocado, for coming on and sharing your experience on camera. Appreciate
Great stuff.
it.
Thanks both.
Thank you.